Hi, I'm Josh Jacob, consultant orthopedic surgeon. This is my colleague Mr. Ashwin Unithan, and we are here at the BMI Runnymede Hospital in the operating theatre. Today, we're going to talk about fractures of the collarbone, also called the clavicle. Looking at this model here, it's a bone model. The clavicle is the only horizontal bone that suspends your main skeleton to your axial skeleton, that's your arms. Although a thin bone, it's a very strong bone and a bone that carries a lot of weight. So if you've been lifting, you're shopping
for weights for me.
Yes, your collarbone is absolutely imperative to convey forces from your arm to the rest of your skeleton, and that way it's a crucial horizontal strut that has been created in such a way to transmit load. Now, collarbones do break. How do they break? It's usually a fall on the outstretched hand. They can break at various levels, as Mr. Unithan will explain.
So, if you have a collarbone fracture at the middle of it, of the collarbone, the treatment can be operative or non-operative. Now, there's a lot of confusion regarding from what the media is, what is the best operation for that. It entirely depends on the fracture pattern. That means how many breaks are there, and also depends on what kind of injury was it. Did you have a high velocity injury, or did you break this by just falling over? And there is what do you think, Mr. Jacob? Is the jury out whether operative or non-operative treatment, the final outcome makes a difference?
So the published literature says that the long-term outcomes are the same. The Canadian Orthopedic Association have done a fairly robust study to indicating that surgical fixation helps in quicker recovery and quicker return to work, slightly decreased non-union rates, but there is of course the incidence of surgical complications. But by and large, each patient is treated on their own merits, and it's a case by case. We're just not arbitrarily following literature that's available out there, and your surgeon will have a detailed discussion about the ins and outs of the procedure, if at all an operation is involved, but more importantly, whether you do need an operation.
Yes, and one has to appreciate the fact that there are lots of important clockwork or vessels just underneath your clavicle. Hence, though it is not a difficult operation in terms of experienced orthopedic trauma surgeons to do this, but it still is a risky procedure, and if you can avoid to have a operation in your clavicle, that is what we would advise.
Absolutely. The key indication by this Canadian Orthopedic Trauma Society was that fractures that overlap at least by an inch, that's 2.5 centimeters, can result in non-union. Fractures that are precariously tenting below your skin, is vulnerable to not unite. So there are bespoke indications, and if they are tightly followed, then maybe surgical fixation would be the way forward. But if you're managing it non-operatively, your surgeon will put you in a sling, and you're allowed to move your shoulder. We don't want your shoulder to come up, and so we'll teach you exercises. The physiotherapist will be involved to avoid your shoulder stiffening up.